Hello, this is Erica of Simply Craft, and this is another tag as part of the Demo Plus workshop collection. So this next tag is quite a chunky one. It's 2 parts of MDF, and for speed I've already covered it and I've painted it with the Paper Artsy Fresco Finish in Little Black Dress, which is the opaque black. So it's already got its coverage. The first thing I want to do, because it takes a while to dry again, is this crackle technique. And you can see it almost looks like crocodile skin. So I'll put the other bits to one side just for a moment. So I only needed to paint the front of it, and we're applying the crackle glaze. We're putting the crackle glaze on the front of it. This is the Deco Art Media Crackle Glaze in clear. So this is quite a different kind of medium. It's very thin and gloopy. So we want to apply it to the top of the frame, and obviously the same applies. The thicker it is, the bigger the cracks. So it's quite a messy bit, this. I should have put it on a piece of paper or non-stick sheet, but there we go, that's what happens. Oh. Scrape that bit off. Really only want it on the top. It's the bit that's going to show. Doesn't really matter if it falls down the side. So just lay it on. So this is different to crackle paste because this allows you to see through it. It's also sometimes called like a craquelure, which is like when you see the varnish in old paintings, when they deteriorate and then they start to crack open, and then all the dirt sticks in the cracks of the paint, of the varnish I should say. That's the look we're going for. But I do think it does have a lot of it does look, but I do think it does look a lot like an animal's skin. And obviously no animals were harmed. Faux technique, I think that's what they call it. So I want a fairly even coverage on the surface. You can fill any holes up, and there we go. And what we need to do is let that dry. Again, you must let it dry on its own. If you do try to speed it up, chances are it just won't crackle. So this now has to be put to one side to dry. So I'll just clear up. Right, so the next part, we can work on the back at least. So that is just a very simple stamp, but just as a practice to show you just something different. So I'll just get the pieces ready, and obviously that bit we're going to glue the work onto. So this is now the back of the tag, and we will be using stamps from the Eclectica Everything Art stamps. This is the 4th of a series of 4, October, November, December, so it's the last quarter of the year. So we're using that stamp and this one here. So let's just, oh, got bits everywhere. Let's just get the stamp onto a block, like so. So for the first layer, I'm going to be using a white chalk, fluid chalk ink, and these ones are by Prima. They come in a cute little boot shape, which are really good for edging as well. Could really do something a bit bigger for this, but This is my favourite white ink pad at the moment. Making sure you get a really good coverage. The wrong way. And then we'll stamp her. It's easier for me to do it this way because of the pressure I can place on it. And we'll put her about there. So really nice hard pressure. If you need to, you can stand up and press down on it. But you want to get as good a coverage as possible. There we are. Okay, then we'll wipe that down. And then we'll use the second part, which is this kind of texty, some sort of just really texture. You can't see what the words say, and they're written in Polish anyway, so just gives a nice texture. We'll put those top and bottom. Just to fill it out. Happy with that? Now I'm going to heat set it. Then I'm going to do an offset stamp technique. Make sure my stamp is dry, and I think I'm going to do it straight without the block, so I've got better control of it. And I'm going to ink the stamp up in the archival cobalt. Now if I stamped this directly onto black, it probably wouldn't show up, but that white behind it will make it stand out. But by slightly offsetting it, you will be left with that. Can you see that kind of offset highlight? So that's the look we're going for. So if we position it, we use the arm as a position, and we want to offset it but not too much that it looks odd. And there we are. Can you see that, hopefully? So you've got the blue just coming out slightly off from the white. I love this way of stamping. It's just another technique really. It's just something a bit different. And then we'll do the blue bit onto the text as well. This might not show up quite so much because it's quite fine detail. No, it doesn't. But at least it adds some of the blue. I just think it's just something a little bit quirky. And like I said, these tags are meant to be about different techniques. I like the idea of it being like a little inspiration box, that anytime you're stuck for something, it might just give you the push to create something. So I'll put my stamps away, and then we've got the second part. Okay, so that back is done now. I just think it just is a little bit different. So on this side, obviously our frame, when it's dry and crackled, will go on the top, but inside I want us a stamped image, and it just so happened the stamp from this set here is perfect, because you can measure it up and see it's absolutely perfect for this. So I've already stamped it, just for, because you know it just takes too long. So I've stamped it in my black VersaFine Onyx black ink, heat set it, and then I've used watercolour pencils to colour it in. So you can see you've got loads of lovely colour going on there now. So I'm just gonna cut that out just loosely. Like so, and I know the frame goes around it and covers up that bit there. If there's any, I do remember there was top and bottom, there was a slight gap, so I'll show you a trick with that. Just with the Sharpie pen, I'm just gonna, let's put something underneath it, there we go. Just with the Sharpie pen, I'm just gonna colour the top, bottom and sides, just in case those edges show. So you can see, just with my pen, just going to go around those edges, and then if they do show, they will show black and not white, and they won't stand out as much if I'd have left them. So there we go, that's covered up. So now it's just a case of gluing it onto the surface, and I'm just going to use some matte decoupage glue. A little bit on there, a little bit on there, just with my fingers. Obviously you could use a brush, fingers are easier to clean. I'm doing both sides because in case it warps, if you've added a little bit of liquid to the actual card itself, you don't get quite so much of it wrinkling. Oops, and now I've got it all over that. And you want to try and get it as central as possible, so wiping that. And just clean my hands. Yeah, just with a tissue over the top, press it down, because then the tissue captures all the glue and it doesn't go onto the piece of work. Just making sure I've got that right. Getting it completely stuck down. Make sure it's square, that's the most important thing. Just make sure it's square, because it will show once there's a frame on it. And then once we've done that, give it a little blast to dry it off. And as you can see, there's a nice sheen to this one. And what I've done is I've given it a layer of gloss glaze. The way we do that to not disrupt the watercolour, because this is a watercolour pencil, and if I were to just paint over it, I might smudge all my colours. So the best way to do it is to have a spare bit of card put some onto that, and then with a sponge, dry sponge, then with a sponge pick it up and sponge it on. That way, always checking that you've got no colour on your sponge and you're not transferring too much colour. You can always just take it off and you just carry on and just keep sponging the gloss glaze, just checking that you're not picking too much colour up. That first layer is the hardest. Once that's all covered, give it a dry. That is now sealed, so my subsequent layers, I shouldn't disrupt any of that paint, or ink I should say, because it is all underneath the glaze. So it depends on how much you layer on, whether you want a really glossy look or whether you just want a nice satin finish, and that depends how many layers you add. I like doing it with the sponge as well because you don't get brush strokes, just get a nice kind of stippled sheen. So this one is almost done. It's now just waiting to have its frame put on it, like so. Okay, so we've nearly finished this tag now. This has all dried now, and really to emphasize the cracks we need to put some paint onto it, but I'm just going to check that when this goes down there aren't going to be any edges showing, and there's just a, can you see there's just a little touch there? So all I'm going to do is just with my black pen, I'm just going to add a little extra line and it'll just take that off of it. And then just to make sure, I'll do the top as well. I'll be absolutely certain then there's no lines showing. So now when I will be sticking that down, there we go. You can see there's no brown showing anymore. Fabulous. Right. So this time we're using the Deco Art Media Antiquing Cream in Patina Green. And we just want to paint some on the surface. Again, I'm using my fingers just to make life easier, because what I really want to work in to the surface, because you just want them, you want it to go right into the cracks, and that will really emphasize that pattern in the Crackle medium. So you want it really, it's better to rub it in with your fingers so it really goes in rather than paint it on, just to make sure it's really in there. You see I'm rubbing right into it. I've got a little bit extra on that bit. I just might as well do the inside. Bit of a messy job, but you do get a really lovely finish. But as I'm wiping it over, I can tell that it's going right into that design. Right, wipe up time. Green fingerprints everywhere now. Oops, knock it over. Right, I'm going to heat dry it. And then with the same wet wipe, I'm going to wipe it back. And then wipe it back, and then with a cloth, wipe the excess off. You can see it's just staying in all the cracks. Oh, that's it, perfect. Haven't taken enough off yet, so keep going, keep taking that. And again, if you go too far, you can just redo it again, put some more on and have another go. hopefully you can start to see, whoops, and there we go, you can see the lovely texture. Just need to get it wet and then wipe that excess off. Just keep going. Do a bit at a time. Oops. I can tell when it's not off because I want it nice and shiny. I'll show you the finished one in a minute, but you can see, just keep wiping because that's gone right into the cracks. You're not going to get rid of it, so you can be quite heavy-handed with this bit. But hopefully you can see there how it falls into the cracks, and you've got a lovely finish. Let's polish that last bit and job done. Now all I need to do is to glue that in place, and probably just to neaten all the edges I'll just take some black paint and paint up all the edges. So if I can just show you the one that's finished, now you can see I've given it an extra polish. You got that lovely emphasised crackle because of the verdigris pattern inside, and there you are on the edges, painted with the black paint. And that's another one done.